In the vast tapestry of African cultures, the introduction of Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Islam, has woven complex narratives that often clash with indigenous beliefs and practices. Traditionally, African spirituality is rooted in a deep connection to the land, ancestors, and communal values. However, with the spread of these monotheistic faiths, there has been a profound disruption, imposing foreign ideologies that often denigrate the rich heritage of African traditions. The initial encounters between African societies and missionaries often mirrored a battle for the soul of the culture. Many indigenous practices were labeled as pagan and backward, leading local populations to either abandon their ancestral beliefs or face ostracism. Rituals that once celebrated agricultural cycles or community milestones were replaced by Christian or Islamic ceremonies, which, while promoting new forms of worship, often stripped away the meanings deeply embedded in African identities. This, in turn, sowed discord within communities, pitting adherents of new faiths against those who clung to age-old traditions. Moreover, the moral frameworks introduced through these religions frequently clashed with time-honored customs. Elements such as polygamy, which were historically accepted in many African societies as a means of social stability and economic strategy, came under scrutiny and condemnation. This not only led to personal turmoil for families, but also disrupted established social structures, creating a rift that has been difficult to mend. These adjustments often came with feelings of guilt or shame regarding indigenous practices, stripping communities of their historical narratives and eroding cultural pride. In addition to internal conflicts, the socio-political ramifications of these religious shifts cannot be overlooked. The intertwining of religion and colonial agendas led to the imposition of foreign governance systems, eroding local leadership and community autonomy. This power dynamic introduced new forms of inequality and disenfranchisement, leaving scars that continued to affect political landscapes long after independence. Educational systems, often rooted in these religions, further alienated future generations from their heritage, promoting Eurocentric histories at the expense of African narratives. Ultimately, while Abrahamic religions offer spiritual solace to many, the impact on African cultures has been a double-edged sword. The need for reconciliation between the old and the new persists, with many communities striving to revive traditional practices alongside their adopted faiths. A dialogue that respects the essence of both worlds is essential for healing and reinvigorating the rich tapestry of African identity amidst the challenges presented by these religions.